First, I'd like to start with roll call. Director Drake.
Liz Drake, District 3.
Hiroshiato, Director, District 5.
Claire Wilson, Director, District 2.
Jeffrey McAnalloy, Director, District 1.
Carol Gregory, Director, District 4. Tammy Campbell, Superintendent.
And now if you'll all please rise for the presentation of the colors by Todd Beamer High School, JROTC. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. First, I'd just like to take a moment to thank Sacagawea Youth Ensemble for sharing their talents with us this evening. If we can give them another round of applause, please. At this time, I would entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of March 8th, 2016 as submitted.
A motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now it's time of one of my favorite times, which is the good news announcements. So let's break down.
All right, here we go. So we are starting with good news, and this is a pretty exciting one. So as I call individual scholars up, if you would please join Superintendent Campbell and President McAnalloy up in front. So Federal Way Public Schools joins families, schools, and communities across the Pacific Northwest in celebrating our 2016 Act 6 scholars. 5 Federal Way Public School student scholars will receive Act 6 scholarships this year. They make up over 20% of the 22 emerging urban and community leaders selected across the Puget Sound region. To be named among these student scholars is quite an accomplishment. They were selected from over 700 applicants following a rigorous 3-month process that assessed their distinctive leadership, academic potential, and commitment to making a difference in their communities. So first I'd like to call up Ruhama Berta from Thomas Jefferson High School and Andrews Boateng from Decatur High School. They were selected. I'll let Ruhama turn around and you can tell me if you can guess. The two of them were selected as Act 6 scholars by Whitworth University. Next up, I would like to call Omar Miranda Garcia from Todd Beamer High School and Alyssa Cadena from Thomas Jefferson High School. They are, when they turn around, you can look at their sweatshirts. They are Pacific Lutheran University Act 6 scholars.
Oh, great.
Unable to join us tonight, but also in here in spirit and up in front with us is Jesus McCluskey. Oh, Jesus, are you here? Come on up. So from TJ, oh, I'm so glad you're here. And you're selected to attend Gonzaga University as an Act 6 scholar. Act 6 seeks to develop urban and community leaders to be agents of transformation on campus and in their home communities. Since the program's inception, 64 cohorts of ethnically diverse and mostly first-generation Act 6 scholars have enrolled at 8 Northwest University or colleges and universities. A huge congratulations, Act 6 scholars. You are great examples for all Federal Way Schools student scholars. Congratulations. All right. Next, I would like to invite up 2 Federal Way Public School students. First is Marianne Falatugo. Okay. And Goddess Malalona Falatogo, who represented Federal Way Public Schools, awesome, in the Regional Braille Challenge competition, which was held February 27th here in Federal Way at St. Luke's Lutheran Church. Marianne is a first grade student in the dual language program at Sunnycrest Elementary. She participated in the apprentice category of the Braille Challenge, competing with first and second graders in Braille spelling, Braille proofreading, and reading comprehension tests. Goddess, who happens to be Marianne's older sister, is in the 8th grade at Totem Middle School. Goddess competed in the junior varsity category against other 7th, 8th, and 9th graders in Braille spelling, Braille proofreading, reading comprehension, and graph tests. Both of these young ladies are served by the district's Vision program. These girls were selected for the regional competition because of their advanced skill levels. Vision program teacher Diana Warren explains that the competition involved 4 hours of very intensive work and included sites across the U.S. and abroad. Once the results come back from this competition, we'll know if Marianne and Goddess will be traveling to the national competition in May. Congratulations, Goddess, and congratulations, Marianne. Nicely done. Yeah.
And now it's my opportunity to congratulate Ron Podmore. Would you like to come up, Ron? For the past 20 years, Ron Podmore has taught American Sign Language, STEM, and college readiness classes at Decatur High School, touching the lives of hundreds of students in that time. Ron has recently been named the Centralia College Foundation's Distinguished Alumnus, the first deaf person to receive this honor. In fact, Ron is a man given to firsts. In 1999, he became the first deaf teacher to earn the Golden Apple Award, and he was the first deaf American to earn National Board certification in 2009.
Wow.
His accomplishments and sphere of influence extend beyond the deaf community and well beyond Federal Way. During the 2014-15 academic year, Ron made multiple round trips to Washington, D.C., where, as a member of a 10-person team, he helped write the rigorous National Board exam standards for the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards Foundation. Those standards are now in place and available for future applicants. Ron has done extensive humanitarian work overseas and, in his free time, has published 2 books. He also was the authorized biographer to Academy Award-winning actress Marlee Matlin. Ron is a 1987 graduate of Centralia College and later studied at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C., and at Western Washington University, the Lewis and Clark College of Law, and Pacific Lutheran University. Congratulations, and thank you, Ron. You make us proud.
I now am going to read about some of our skilled musicians. And before I start, let me apologize first in case I screw up your name. I'm going to try. 19 students from across Federal Way schools traveled to Yakima in mid-February to participate in the Washington Music Educators Association All-State Honor Music Ensembles. This is an annual event run by the association as part of its Music Educators Conference on President's Day weekend each year. Students auditioned last fall and were chosen from among student musicians statewide to be a part of these select ensembles. Guest conductors from around the country were brought in to rehearse and conduct the all-state groups. These students are to be highly commended for being among the best student scholar musicians our state has to offer. And I'm now going to call names, and would you please come up? Participating in the Junior All-State Youth Choir, Haley Johnson, Kaylin Nelson, Lana Corey from Camelot Elementary, Kyla Dela Cruz of Kylo Middle School. Participating in the All-State Chamber Orchestra, Da-Young Chung and April Kim, both from Decatur High School. Will you come up? Participating in the All-State Concert Band, Danny Klein, Decatur, and Kevin Lee, Todd Beamer High School. Okay, participating in the All-State Symphony Orchestra, Lila Klein, Decatur High School, Angie Kong, Federal Way High School, and Ellie Kim, Thomas Jefferson High School. Participating in the Junior All-State Orchestra, Kevin Ta, Lakota Middle School, and Thomas Hiyun, Sacagawea Middle School. Participating in the Junior All-State Band, Lugman Shibley, here, this one I hope I can do right. I apologize. Tyra Hey Up Woolfolk. Thank you. Participating in the Junior All-State Mixed Choir, Mackenzie Nichols, Sacagawea Middle School. Participating in the All-State Treble Choir, Celeste Cayutano, Todd Beamer High School. And finally, participating in the All-State Jazz Choir, Jonathan Wynn from Todd Beamer High School. Where? Did I miss somebody? Oh, I forgot one. Junior All-State Treble Choir, Taylor Harmer, Sacagawea Middle School. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Congratulations to all our very successful musicians.
Okay, let's huddle up. Let's get in closer.
Thanks.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, next, it's really remarkable to even be a league champion with so many teams that are in our league. So when athletic director Jerry Peterson notes that this is truly remarkable, it really is when you consider as well at the state level, every school in the wrestling competitions is represented. It's not small schools against small schools, it's everybody in. And with that, Federal Way Public Schools came home with 4 state champions. So if I could have from Todd Beamer High School, Haley Parker, and also from Todd Beamer, Adrian Avina, and from Federal Way High School, Anjay Hughes Murray, and from Decatur High School, Leviticus Arispa. The Washington State Mat Classic was held at the Tacoma Dome on February 19th and 20th, and we had these 4 state champions, 2 from Todd Beamer High School. Federal Way's only female state wrestling champ this year, Haley Parker, entered the tournament ranked as the top wrestler in her weight class thanks to a great season with only 1 loss. She was the team captain this year, leading by example, and always there before practice to set up the mats. She has participated in wrestling since elementary school and plans to continue to compete in college. Fellow Todd Beamer senior, Adrian Avina, is a 4-year varsity letter winner and has even traveled to Japan with 2 of his teammates to wrestle in a foreign exchange program. He won 4 tournaments this year and was voted by coaches at one of those tournaments as an outstanding wrestler. Adrian has enlisted in the Marines and is headed to basic training this summer. Federal Way High School's Anjay Hughes Murray managed to do what no Eagle wrestler has done in 28 years, bringing home a state championship. Anjay has 41 wins and no losses this year. He takes advanced classes and is a Cambridge U.S. History class tutor. He's also an avid student and has participated in We Act. He is going to Oregon State University this fall on a football scholarship. I should note that Oregon State also has a very good wrestling team. Leviticus Arispa, a Decatur High School student in his senior year, became the first 4-time state placer in Decatur High School history at this year's tournament. He was 3rd in state his 9th grade year, 5th as a sophomore, and 3rd as a junior before winning the state title this year. Leviticus is also an Ignite mentor and active in his church. Congratulations to each and every one of these state champions. Now, finally, we want to honor Decatur Wrestling head coach Mike Bressler, who was selected by, please. He was selected by other coaches at the Mat Classic as the Washington State 4A Coach of the Year. Wow. Mike is retiring after 18 years as social studies teacher in Federal Way Public Schools and as the head coach at Decatur. In 18 years, he's taken a non-existent wrestling program to state contender, winning several league and regional titles and twice taking second in state. Thank you very much for your long service, Mr. Mike Bressler, and best wishes on your journey.
We actually are having, they're going to provide food. We're doing
We'll give them just a minute to exit out before we move on.
Oh, they're bringing food, that's even better.
All right, next item on the agenda is our legislative report from Director Drake.
Good evening, everyone. We are entering the last few days of the legislative session. The session ends at midnight on Thursday, March the 10th, and there is so much left still to do. It's a nail biter. It really is. I'm checking the site not even every day, twice a day, to see what's developing, what's happening, what's changing. At this moment, we still only have one bill that's been signed by Governor Inslee. That's the 6195, the McCleary Task Force bill that I spoke about 2 weeks ago, that is a bill that is going to put in motion a task force to work on providing recommendations to the governor by the end of 2017 session for the McCleary Act. So at this moment, it may feel as if they're spinning their wheels, but at least we've got something that is in place. The budget is a big problem at the moment. It is a supplemental budget for this year, which means they could leave on Thursday and not even have to pass a budget. It's not thought to be likely they'll do that, but the House and Senate at this moment, there is such a discrepancy between the amounts of money that have been put in by the House and by the Senate, and obviously a lot of the bills that are being pushed forward rely upon a budget. And so that's why there is so much nail-biting going on. The main issues that certainly affect us here in Federal Way, teacher shortage crisis. There are many bills still to be resolved, to finalized. Charter schools, that has still not been finalized, the bills on charter schools. And graduation requirement fixes. There's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of development, but nothing has yet been passed. And so we still don't know where we stand with the biology requirement. In 2 days, 3 days, we will know. Probably the most critical element in everything that's going on at the moment is the levy lid, otherwise known as the levy cliff. Now, the levy lid came about, I'm just going to explain it. I have really wrangled with understanding this, and this is a test of my understanding to see if I can explain it to you. So hopefully I'm going to do okay. So the levy lid came in place because of the reluctance of legislators to do anything about McCleary. They are not funding basic education, and as a result, they decided to sort of partially rectify this by allowing districts to raise more money through levies. That is going to end. That is going to end this year. That's why it's called the levy cliff, because if we do not get a year deferred, in other words, an increase of 1 year with the levy lid as it stands, many, if not all, districts are going to suffer considerably. It's going to mean that many districts, Federal Way included, if this doesn't go through, we will be handing out reduction in force, pink slip notices next spring, 2017, because the reduction in our budget will be so significant that we won't be able to keep the workforce that we have presently. It's a crisis, it's an emergency. And I've been reading, and I've been on a couple of webinars listening about this, and I've been angsting about this. This is serious stuff. And I really urge you in the audience, but also I'm hoping there are lots of people at home listening to this, you need to contact your legislators. You need to contact the legislators of districts 30, 47, and 33. They're the people that work with our district. What I would like, and this is new territory for me tonight, so I was seeking advice before the board meeting started, so if I get it wrong, let me know. I'd like to propose a motion, because I was putting together my sentiment to the legislators this morning, and it occurred to me how much more powerful the message would be if it were from us as a board. Now, I can't do that without the board saying that's okay, and I can't have that conversation anywhere but here in front of you. So I'm moving a motion, and let me know how it goes. I move that I, as a legislative liaison rep of the board, contact our 9 legislators in the 30th, 47th, and 33 districts to impress upon them the importance of passing the levy lid bill for an extension of the levy lid for 1 more year, and I haven't put that down here, but I can add it, before the end of the legislative session on March 10th at 12 o'clock. So that's what I'm proposing, that's what I'm moving. How
So
am
I have a
doing?
motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
So a motion and second. So at this time, I'd open it up for discussion.
I'm wondering if I could maybe add some clarity, and it's really not about individually contacting, so I don't know whether this is a friendly amendment or whether we vote it down and maybe redo the motion, but it's really crafting a letter on behalf of the Federal Way School District Board to our delegation related to the levy lid situation. Anyway, that would be my only addition to discussion, because as you stated the motion, you said contact, but it was not clear on what that meant, so I'm not sure where that fits, but Carol has some.
Dr. Gregory.
I would say that the board should direct you as our legislative representative to express our incredible concern about this situation and the impact it would have on our district.
So
That I think is the cleanest. Okay.
all right, so do you want to rescind yours and allow Director Gregory to redo it?
I really appreciate the suggestion. I think it sounds a lot more powerful and a lot better. And would you mind crafting that for us?
So I need you to rescind yours first.
I rescind.
Okay. And does the second also accept the rescinding?
I do.
Perfect. Right. Director Gregory? Bear with us. Thank you.
I move that the Federal Way Board of Directors direct the legislative chair or is that what you're called? Close enough. Legislative chair, to express our incredible concern about the situation the Federal Way School District would face if the levy lid bill is not passed, and urge that it be the highest priority.
So a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on the current motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your report. Right, the next item on our agenda is a report out from the executive session, and I would entertain a motion at this time based on discussion out from personnel.
I move that the Board of Education approve the action item from executive session to extend Dr. Tammy Campbell's contract by 1 year through June 30th, 2019.
Have a motion, do I hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Well,
Oh,
I
good
think
discussion?
it goes without saying that she's doing a tremendous job. And so let that be known, that there was quite a bit of discussion about all the accomplishments, and we truly value what she's done in the short time she's been with us. And I think this is more than due.
Any other discussion? Sorry about that, Director Ito. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next on our agenda is public comment. There are blue sheets on the back table if you're interested in making public comment. And at this time, I would call up Portia Appleman. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Board President McAnaloy, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My son's first grade class has experienced violence from one student that in most school districts would involve the police. His class has been evacuated several times. None of us parents were informed of the evacuations. My son was attacked with scissors by a student who has a history and pattern of violence. Thankfully, he was able to get away, but the potential for injury, disfigurement, or even death was there. Emotionally, he was very scared. The school never informed me of this incident either. If the school district wants to change for the better, you must become transparent in your actions. Parents have a right to be informed when their child has been placed in danger. I should know when my child's class has been evacuated because he is in danger, and I most definitely should be told of a potentially lethal attack on my child. The district informs us of school lockdowns due to police activity in the area, or when a student has a gun or students are missing. It is sheer hypocrisy that you do not inform us when the danger is actually in the classroom and a real threat to my child. I want your policy regarding informing parents about safety issues updated to include informing parents about a violent child in the classroom, as well as when violence occurs. I believe the hardest part of this whole experience is the fact that I blindly trusted the school district with my child's safety. I actually believed that you had the best interest of my child at heart. And now I learned that instead you have decided that you are willing to risk the safety and well-being of my child and have knowingly placed him in a situation where he is at risk from violence from a student that you know is extremely violent. How dare you risk my child, and how dare you not inform me? My child's life is not something you play with, and he is not an acceptable casualty. There should have been a choice of whether or not I wanted to risk placing my child in a class with a child that has a history of extreme violence. Personally, I don't see how that is an acceptable situation for any child, including the violent child. How can learning take place in an unsafe environment? I spoke with the superintendent's office. I find it insulting that they could only talk about how they couldn't talk about the violent child. When it comes to my child's safety, I don't care about the violent child's plan. I care about making a plan that ensures my child's safety from a student you already know is a violent perpetrator. No one seems to be able to make a safety plan for the good and well-behaved child, and that is unacceptable. If you can't make my child safe in a class, then you have failed as a district. If the district can only react to children with violent behavior and then try out safety plans hoping they work, then you are not an effective district. It shouldn't be a surprise there are kids with problems. Yes, you have to teach them, but you have to teach my child also. You should already have a plan in place for this. If you can't handle them in a regular classroom, then take the violence or disruption out of the classroom. Create special classes or classrooms that are specific for kids with violent tendencies, bullying, extreme social issues, etc. This way my child is safe, the violent child is safe, the entire class is safe, and the school district is faced with less liability as they are protecting all children. This especially gives the troubled child a chance to have his needs met, which could then lead to a positive future for him or her. The school district has held several meetings this year about creating goals for our district and focusing on the whole child. This rhetoric has proved to be just rhetoric. You have knowingly endangered my child. My child is not safe at school. What are you, the Federal Way School District, going to do about it?
Thank you for your comments. We'll refer this to Dr. Campbell and her team. She'll get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Gary Robertson on the state of education.
Before I give my speech, I'd like to preface it with one quick comment. And I'd like to say congratulations to the Federal Way boys basketball team for their second consecutive state title. And they had a nail biter in the semifinal against the number 2 team from Gonzaga Prep that went right down to the wire, but they pulled it out. And I think we're really proud to have back-to-back state championships, because that doesn't happen every day. Okay. Good evening, President McAnally, board members, and Superintendent Campbell. Tonight I'm here to talk about our great superintendent, Dr. Campbell, and her State of the Education address, which I had the privilege to hear for the first time this year. When she was finished with her presentation, she received a standing ovation, and deservedly so. She talked about the strengths and weaknesses of the district, and she was totally open, honest, and transparent, and that's the way a leader gains the respect and trust of her constituents. She talked about the problem with 6th grade literacy when compared to other neighboring districts. We were second to the last, which really surprised me, because we've been putting this focus in for so long now, over 15 years. I thought it improved more than that. And then the other problem was the 7th grade math, which was last compared to the other districts. That did not surprise me, because as former superintendent Tom Murphy said, the legislature just didn't make that a funding priority. And I think that was a tragic mistake, because that's just as important as literacy. And I think a key to this problem goes back to your goal in the strategic plan, and that has to do with early childhood education. The goal is to make sure 3rd graders are up to speed when it comes to literacy and math by the 3rd grade. And I think the key to that is, well, something I've been advocating for 3 or 4 years now, and that is to rehire the paraeducators and put them back in the kindergarten classrooms where we need their help, so we can make sure that goal is achieved. And like I say, not only do I have the best teacher in the state supporting me on this, but I also have Dr. Campbell. And the last thing I wanted to address was the chronic absenteeism, which I wasn't aware of, and I think I'm safe to say the parents may not be aware of as well, but they're the key to the solution. And we need to get the message to them that it's very vitally important for their students to be in class every day, so they can get the quality education they deserve, and that they won't fall behind the students that are in the class. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Renice Jones on school bullying process.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My 2nd grade child is a victim of bullying, harassment, and violence at school. He has been attacked with scissors, he's been scratched, he's been choked, he's been kicked. His schoolwork has been vandalized and destroyed. We've filed all of the required paperwork with the district as required by the administrative policies and procedures. And I'm here today because that was not an easy process. The website was hard to find what we were supposed to do and who we were supposed to give it to. Once we did that and we received an appeal or a response to our form, said that there was an appeal form, and 2 days later when we looked on the website, that form was no longer available. So we called the district and we were told that it was an old, out-of-date process and there were changes being made. So that was frustrating. The day after we received our response to our initial complaint, my child's classroom had to be evacuated because the child that we were complaining about was throwing chairs, attacking kids with scissors, and in order to keep the other kids safe, they had to be removed, which disrupts their learning. This child is a victim himself, so we're very understanding, but I ask that there be a process in place that protects my child and offers support for that child, because we've really had to fight for that. And it has been an extremely stressful process. It's an unfortunate situation. My child was asked to move classrooms when he has a strong connection with his teacher, and that upset him more almost than being a target of bullying, because he did not want to leave his teacher. But the child who is hurting the other students was not asked to move, and he has no place to go. I understand that, but I ask that you look at your procedures and make them friendlier, maybe, and easier to navigate for the families who are going through such a difficult time.
Thank you. We'll refer this to Dr. Campbell and her team as well. All right, next is superintendent comments. Dr. Campbell?
Good evening. I have a couple of highlights. One is that last week I met with 4 high school students to talk about what we can do specifically in response to the tragedy that happened where we lost one of our students. And we met, and they came up with some ideas around a student rally that we're going to have on March 26th. Our goal is to have as many students there as possible, because what we believe is that the students at our secondary schools, specifically our high schools and our middle schools, can really take the culture and elevate it to new heights, so that we have a culture where students report, where they share what's happening, but also that they talk about what can be done to make schools even more positive. We're going to have student speakers. Jeff Stock with Wildways has donated some money for food to the tune of $10,000 to help pay for T-shirts and food. Our community's behind us, and I'm encouraging folks who are listening tonight to come to the event to support our students, because I believe that there's so much good that's happening, and once we get our students empowered, they can actually help continue to ensure that the culture at each of our secondary schools are what we want them to be. So it's called Unity for Greatness. That's what the students have named it. And we'll have T-shirts, food trucks, student speakers, the band, really encouraging students to make commitments about ensuring our school environments are healthy, safe, and productive places. I was at the boys and girls basketball games over the weekend, and I got to see the Todd Beamer girls take 3rd place. They are some pretty tough competitors. They did a really nice job. I also had an opportunity to watch the Federal Way boys win the state championship. They had a rough first half, and then they came back on the second half and really just nailed it. And I think it's important to know about those young men that they are scholars. Many of them have scholarships, well over a 3.0 GPA, and so it's they're to be celebrated not only for their athleticism and grit, but for what they're doing in the classroom as well. And that's one of the things that I really want us to continue to celebrate and promote, that we're learning institutions even when we're engaging in sports and activities. The other event that I want to just sort of go back to is our community forums. We've had probably almost, I want to say 350 to 400 parents who participated in our strategic planning forums. And we know that the forums don't magically turn the district around. What the forums do, they give us feedback so that we can start to enact change over the next few years that will fundamentally shift the district. And we want to take our time so we get the input of all of our community, and we're right now making adjustments and refinements to our goals and our strategies based on that feedback. But we will then be using that feedback to sharpen the strategic plan, but more importantly, to inform the school improvement plans for all of our schools. Right now, our school improvement plans are not necessarily aligned around common goals, and that's what these efforts are aimed to do. To really turn the organization in the direction where we're all moving forward in a common direction, focused on those common strategies that we believe can elevate Federal Way Public Schools to the next level. So more to come about the actual strategic planning goals, and we're excited about the road ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll have school board comments. Director Drake, would you like to start us this evening?
So I would say in the last 2 weeks I've had the perfect combination of events and activities to attend. I've been in some schools, I've attended some meetings, and I've been part of some community events. And all of them are giving me a stronger basis to understand my role as school board director. So I'm thrilled with these various activities that I've been involved with. So at the end of February, I went to Green Gables Elementary and was involved in a variety of STEAM, that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. That's how it's STEAM rather than STEM. And just seeing students in a variety of different situations and settings that they had actually chosen to attend. It was a special morning, it was an early release day, and the teachers were each focusing on a different aspect of STEAM, between gravity painting and robotics, and I really found it to be very valuable. I was also in 2 schools, Olympic View and Camelot, with the Read Across America, and was so impressed with one class in particular, the way in which the students were asking questions, the way they were delving into some of the ideas that I was reading and talking about. I'm actually going to be going back to this classroom because it was just such a fabulous experience. And I left the school really feeling pleased that I'm on the school board, because these are the sorts of experiences that build us as good school board members. I attended 2 of the community forums that Dr. Campbell referenced, and I've been at most, not all, of the community forums, and have been impressed with the way in which parents, community members have offered ideas of how we can build our district as being a strong place for all students. I absolutely agree with Dr. Campbell, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. And we need to hear what's not working as well as what is working to be able to move forward. And that's what we're about. And then I attended the Rotary Gala, which was quite a posh affair, in Tacoma. And anyone and everyone was at this gala. And then I attended Thomas Jefferson auction just a few days ago, where so many parents were there with the single focus of making everything possible that they could possibly do to benefit their students at Thomas Jefferson. They raised over $40,000, over $40,000. And again, just that sense that we are in a community that cares about students, that cares about doing the best we can do. And then lastly, I'm just going to mention the state of the schools. Dr. Campbell, Gary nailed it. The honesty, the transparency, the way that you are identifying the areas that we need to work on, the absenteeism, the preparing all students for kindergarten, the discrepancy, the just as well as the positive about the fact that all 4 of our high schools are in the top 1,500 high schools in Washington State. So it wasn't one of these presentations where you make everything sound great. It's realistic, and that's how we're going to get our constituency moving forward. So it's been a great 2 weeks.
Director Etto.
Well, I'd like to start off by thanking Mrs. Benrose class, who sent me this thank you for participating in their Read Across America event at Olympic View. And a lot of them in here talked to me about remembering the 1st of October. And if you don't know about that Dr. Seuss book, it's the day that you get everything you want. And hopefully there's not going to be a 1st of October, or else they'll be given a lifetime supply of candy and recess. I did enjoy that event, and we got to talking about how they're a eco-friendly school, and how children were telling me that they recycle all their plastics. And I remember in 2014, some kids came to the board and they talked about the amount of wasteful use of styrofoam that we've had in our schools, and it was good to hear that we're recycling at our schools. So maybe that took effect somewhere along the ways. Just to, coming off the public comment, I did attend the last sessions there at Thomas Jefferson and Kylo just recently, and I noticed that across the board, every time, all the parent groups and the student voice groups, they all talked very strongly about supporting health and safety of the child. And it struck me that in our goals, the words are missing. And I know that the team understands that the word thriving means healthy and safe students. I think in terms of community clarity, I think it would be better if we have those words that they're looking for, health and safety of the student, right there in the forefront. So I would kind of encourage that we try to make this as community friendly as possible, even though the strategy is going to be implemented by the superintendent and her team, and it's their understanding of the strategy that's going to help them forward. It's always easier in my mind to communicate in simple words. And so if we're going to say that health and safety is very important, and given the recent event with the Jennings murder, I think we probably should have those words spelled out clearly. But I really appreciated the level of participation in the public and the great amount of thinking that they put through. And it's really good to see that the goals truly align one-on-one with all the heavy voted areas that the parents wanted. I just would wordsmith that one word, thriving, because I don't think it's as clear. Thanks.
Vice President Wilson.
I too had a chance to be at the community forums, and the last two at TJ and also at Kylo, and I appreciated my ability to be a listener and observer, which was the role we played as board directors. And I think we have to make sure we remember that strategic design, or the ends, is what we own, and that's the big ideas, and the strategic plan is really what happens to implement those ends. So if after we go through this community process, we believe as a board that the words, whether it's whole child or healthy, need to show up, I think then as a board we need to look at that related to our ends, not related to the strategic plan, because those are the ends that we own. And so as an observer, I also know too that there are many words that one might look at that could be kind of categorized under that safe and healthy. So what I would encourage us to do is to make sure that we allow that strategic planning process to play out, because we are not participants in the process. We're observers as board directors. Clearly our input is when the information comes to us, but I think we have to be really careful about not allowing the process to complete itself as it should, using our strategic planning group and using the design team that we have. And I have true faith that that will come out not only in our ends, because it is critically important, but in everything that we do as far as our strategies as we move forward. I spent Wednesday morning, the 2nd, Read Across America at Olympic View also, and had the chance to spend my morning in room 4, which was Miss Hernandez's 2nd grade class, where we read together the book by Todd Parr, It's Okay to Be Different. And if you don't know that book, you should look it up, because it's a really good one. It's a great read aloud, and it's a great book to elicit conversation and kind of ask the students for the rest of the day to observe and notice what they saw as far as differences around them, not only between them, but among them as well. The State of Education address for me was nothing but kudos. It was a packed room, standing room only. The two things that just stand up and out to me clearly are, and were the presence of student and student voice, not only visibly there, but also in the presentation. And then if you haven't had a chance, the wonderful voice of the graduating class of 2028, being the early learning person that I am, you need to spend 3 minutes looking at our current kindergartners with the aspirations that they have for themselves. because every one of them will be what they say they want to be. And we have to provide that space and that access and opportunity for that. I want to say I also had a chance to go to the TJ RPM fundraiser, and I just want to say TJ is a little different in that they don't have a PTA. And the RPM is the Raider Parent Movement, and it's how they fundraise and collect for all things Raider. So athletics, academics, arts, just all those kinds of extracurricular activities that you might traditionally think would come from a PTO, they've kind of put all together. And I had an opportunity to bid on, and I got one wonderful piece of student art, so that's always a favorite thing of mine as well. And our community is hurting, our students are hurting, and I'm really thankful for the March event. That's going to happen on the 26th. I think we don't really know how deep that goes and how far and wide situations like that impact our students. And I'll tell you, students far and wide know more than probably any one of us did from the day things started to happen. And we just have to take note with media and the way things are today. We have to make sure we understand that we cast a broad net and make sure all of our students see themselves as part of a solution. And so I look forward to supporting that any way I can.
Director Gregory?
I just want to comment on two things. One, I attended a field trip with a group of Avid students, and it always is fascinating to me how interested this particular group of students who do not have parents who have gone to college, how interested they are in learning about something that is foreign to them in one respect, but something they desire greatly. I think it's just one of the most amazing programs that we have, and I think, Charlie, you're the one that we have to thank for that, and thank you. But I think it's also important that we look at all these successful programs and see where the pieces might be missing. And one of the things I saw, which I never worry about because I know we can identify both the positives and negatives in anything. But one of the things I realized was that if our students go to Running Start, which is an incredibly important program for some of our students, not all of them, they no longer have the access to what Avid provides as far as preparation for college. And I think that's something we might want to think about, because those are still our students and we still benefit from their success. And I just think it's one of those things that has kind of fallen through the cracks. But I was amazed at how excited the students were and how attentive they were, even though some of them were trying not to let you know that they were really excited about going to college and felt very positive. We thanked University of Washington at Tacoma and UPS for their time and energy in really advocating college to our students. I also want to say that I'm glad to be back. I want to thank everyone who has supported me through a very difficult time. I don't know how many know that my husband died in December, and so it's been kind of hard for me to be in groups, but I'm back and I intend to do my part, and just thank you for the support that you've been.
We're glad you're back, Dr. Gregory. So, as has been shared several times tonight, the community forums are complete, and we actually have a total of about 1,700 total voices that have been heard, whether it be on the internet, out of our core group, our instructional groups, or the forums, and that's pretty phenomenal to me that there have been 1,700. I too, like Vice President Wilson says, that we are there as observers, and we need to make sure we stay in that role as observers, because it's really important when we're board members that we separate what we do from a governance perspective based on what happens operationally. And the strategic plan truly is based on what happens operationally, and we need to make sure that we keep our fingers out of that and let that process happen as it is happening and will happen by the end of April. It was a very proud moment for me at the State of Education. The student-centered focus out of the entire presentation was phenomenal to me. We must always remember that the students are at the center of everything we do. And Dr. Campbell continues to do that and show that and shines that. And the transparency of what our wins are and some of our areas of need and things that we need to focus on were also something that was just very nice and very refreshing to see, because that's how we're going to make change and take care of our students in the long run. I got to do a Read Across America at Camelot Elementary in 2 classes with Mrs. Stegner's and Miss Nedler's classes, and it was really nice to go in and be with students and do that. Their excitement and their willingness to want to do it and just their excitement about reading was very refreshing. I too attended the TJ auction, and it was nice to be a part of the team, to be there and to be supportive of that group and that community. Today I attended a Federal Way student meeting at Federal Way High School. I met with the BSU, Black Student Union, and the LSU and Fuentes organizations, the Latino organizations, and just their honesty in sharing, those 18 students that shared openly. If you're listening to this, I really appreciate where you're at and what you're sharing, and you're being heard. And so those concerns are being shared, and Dr. Campbell and I have talked, and I just, you know, it's amazing when we stop and listen to students and listen to what their concerns are and what their needs are, how well they can articulate what they truly need. And I think it's important that we continue to make sure we do that as we move forward with all of our students. My last thing I'll talk about is that I've been assigned to the Streamlining Committee for the WASDA Legislative Committee. There are 7 of us, 4 of us that serve on the Legislative Committee and 3 that serve on the board that are coming together to try to streamline. Our legislative priorities are getting to the point where we had actually 89 different SLPs, they call them, as the legislative priorities, that had some vote out of the Legislative Assembly. So I've been tasked as one of 7 to streamline those, which is not an easy process when you go back at what's been created for the last 35 years. But that's what we're tasked with to try to present to at the Legislative Committee. And so I'm excited about the work. I've spent several hours this week doing it. And hopefully we can really hone in and figure out what our priorities are and how we do it and how we can become more nimble as an organization to make sure we can have a bigger impact with our legislation and take care of our students at the end. So thank you. Next, Dr. Campbell, if you'll lead us through the early release update.
So as you know, we've had a focus in this district on efforts related to professional learning communities and how our staff are coming together to make sure that they're looking at student work, looking at data to improve practice. At this time, I'd like to invite our 4 principal leaders up to the podium because I believe they are experts at what we want this to look like. We've got Julie Ray, the principal at Lakeland, Kent Cross, the principal at Rainer View, Craig Tutt, the principal at Lakota, and David Brower, the principal at Decatur. They have put together a compilation of what you would be seeing at during our early releases and how this is working in service of our ends or student learning improving. So let's see what you've got. We're excited.
Good evening, Board President McAloney, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. We're very excited tonight to share with you the power of professional learning communities. And really the most important piece is the benefit that results in student learning due to this work. My name is Julie Ray. I'm the principal at Lakeland Elementary. So we're just going to take you through a journey of all of our buildings ranging from elementary, middle, and then high school, and really show you what this looks like and sounds like. So our goals for this presentation is really to provide an update on the use of our early release days and how we've been utilizing these days to improve student learning, to really show you what it looks like and sounds like across the district, and to demonstrate how these days are being used to improve student learning. So our agreement. As you know, we've been utilizing the late start and early release days to really embed that professional learning in our school. So every school develops agendas and really lesson plans that guide what that day looks like and sounds like. And it's really focused on that student learning. There's 4 questions that drive every PLC across the district. And last summer, every principal had the opportunity to invite 10 teachers to a really rich professional development training. And we really focused on the why of PLCs to really help our teacher leaders develop that belief system. And the 4 questions that drive all of our PLCs is, what are you learning? So that really takes it down to the learning target level and really gets grade level teams on the same page. So we have the big standards, but it takes it down to that individual daily learning target level so that kids are guaranteed that high quality instruction. Second question that drives the PLC is how will you know if you learned it? So teachers are really looking at common assessments and student work and really analyzing that data to determine best practice and next steps. And then the third question is how will we respond if they don't learn? So really looking at those common assessments and data, looking at strengths of every single student scholar, and looking at goals to really inform that instruction as a grade level team. And then the fourth question, how will we respond if they already know it? So really providing that enrichment and that extension for kids that already have that content to really leverage learning for all of our student scholars. So I'm going to take you through our last early release at Lakeland. All of my teams developed SMART goals. So they developed those goals at the beginning of the year, and that was really around a problem of practice. So looking at multiple data pieces, looking at our district data, looking at the state data, and really defining what we need to do to improve practice. So this is an example of a 4th grade writing SMART goal. Their goal is around writing instruction. We also have school goals, so that's also nested in this. We're really focusing on the learning target and then the success criteria. So students really knowing what will that look like and sound like if they're meeting that target. And then the action steps. So as you can see, this 4th grade team was working on analyzing and scoring opinion writing at the last late start, and they're sorting the papers by kids that are missing an intro, kids that are missing conclusion, kids that are missing style or word choice. And then they're really looking after that data on what are our goals in our mini lessons and collaborating on what mentor text are we going to use, what questions are we going to use to really propel those next steps. And then this is an example of my kindergarten team. They also chose ELA, so English Language Arts, and this is a picture of my team creating learning targets for the whole team. And their goal is really around reading instruction. So phonics and also retell, and then key ideas with asking questions. So they're writing common targets for their core instruction, as well as their small group guided reading to really get clear about what do we want students to learn based on their data analysis. And then all of my teachers write lesson plans that we develop together in the professional learning community before the early release. So this is as an example of my 1st grade writing inquiry cycle, so that's also nested in their SMART goal. And they were really working on informational writing. So teams have common rubrics they develop. So they're analyzing a rubric and then they're looking at student work. And with 1st grade, it was really neat to see because they looked student by student and they're looking at what are the strengths of the student and what are our next steps for goals, and really collaborating on research-based strategies to meet the needs of all of our 1st graders. Really the benefit as a PLC is they're all of our kids. It's not just about, Mr. Good's room, that those are his kids. We're really embracing these are all of our kiddos, and we're all responsible to do what's best for them. And then this was my 2nd grade team focusing on a math lesson design. So they're using common assessments along the way and analyzing them. And then they were developing a consensus board lesson guide. And then our coach came into one of their rooms, and all 3 teachers did the same lesson, so all kids then are exposed to that high quality instruction. But we've really worked on building on unpacking those learning targets and success criteria. So what that means is you're going to see up there's the key words, they're circled, they're drawing sketches by those words, kids are turning and talking. So then they know the academic vocabulary when they're engaged in that task. And then this is an example of kids in action with that 2nd grade lesson they collaborated on. So as you can see, there's partners working. This is a 2nd grade room. There's a problem-based task. Kids are working on the task individually, and then they're coming to a consensus and putting that solution in the middle. And then one of the other great parts is there's a strategic math share out, where the teacher is strategically selecting kids based on a strategy, and then kids are owning that by coming up front and sharing their strategy, and other students are picking up on noticing what they agree with, what they disagree with. So the level of cognitive demand is very high. And then finally, our intermediate collaboration. This is a 5th grade team, and they're collaborating on common ELA assessments. And then they're giving pre-assessments too. So they're using something called a Plicker, where kids hold up little cards and the teacher scans it with an iPad, and you get automatic results. So then they can do an item analysis, and their goal is also around reading, and then they're using context clues and academic vocabulary. So as you can see, my building has similar goals. Overall, it's writing. It's also nested in the teacher evaluation, so they have growth goals, and it's linked to our school goals. So this is really just giving teachers time to get on the same page and provide that high quality instruction. I won't read all of the quotes, but few of them from a 1st year, 2nd grade teacher. She says, PLC benefits the staff because when you work together as a team, you can impact instruction through quality planning at a faster pace. Lesson design comes from the best that every part of the team has to offer. In turn, this benefits our students because they're getting the best instruction possible. PLCs focus on student work, what is going well, what needs adjustments, and the next steps necessary to improve student learning. Overall, PLCs have led to improvement in our student achievement and instructional practice. It has particularly been an extra support system for a 1st year teacher. So I really think our 1st year teachers, it's huge to have that collaboration and that time. And then 4th grade team. Our team has been able to utilize our PLC time to create a writing plan for the year, create individual lesson plans, common rubrics, checklists, co-assess student work, and plan next steps. It's been beneficial to our students to have this time allotted to this important work. So teachers truly appreciate, and most importantly, our kids are benefiting from this time. Thank you.
Good evening, board directors and Dr. Campbell. Thank you for this opportunity for us to share a little bit about Rainier View Elementary and how we handled our early release opportunities. As you may or may not know, Rainier View is one of the schools that has seen a significant population shift. We are now at 550 students, 50% of which are new to Rainier View as of March of last year. 75% of our students are free and reduced, and a significant of our population has intervention needs. 140 students are qualified ELL, active ELL students, and 25 students as of today have enrolled to our school since January, and we have, and 5 have left. So as you see that we have a need at Rainier View to really understand what the data is, to really focus on part 3 of what Julie talked about with the 4 questions is how do we respond if they don't learn? And so what we focus on, first of all, with our staff, it was a great opportunity for us to spend 15 minutes with all of our staff. We started off with our classified and our certificated staff, and really took a look at what is our celebrations. Because when you are working with such a shift of population, you need to be able to celebrate what's going well. And so we had an opportunity to celebrate what's going well, and then really be able to say, now is the time to put the pedal down to the metal. It is. So we also took a look at what does our attendance data look like, and we were very pleased with that our kids love coming to school. We also had a goal for early release. This is a sample of a kindergarten plans for the kindergarten team. We broke it down to 6 different teams, and each team made a proposal that was approved to what was going to be happening for their time for early release. Again, what we mainly focused on this last time was that analyzing data and focusing on Tier 2 mapping opportunities. This is a sample of what are some of our kindergarten teachers and our instructional coach meeting together and actually working on an Excel spreadsheet and mapping out where our students fell within the data. Second, 3rd grade collaboration opportunities is what was happening. 4th grade, analyzing data and Tier 2 data mapping. 5th grade data analysis and Tier 2 mapping. And even we were able to have, we lacked this opportunity, but we were able to gain it with early release. It was to be able to value our classified staff and provide them with their voice and some training opportunity. So everybody was involved. Some feedback from our staff members: love getting to work with my team, and it continues on, but I really want to share this one out. This is one of the first grade teacher, and she's also FWA rep for us. The value of time spent with my colleagues cannot be measured. I learn from them every time we meet, whether we are helping one teacher solve an issue with a particular difficult student, sharing ideas about how to better teach a concept, or reviewing data to see what our next steps will be to help out our students move forward. We are learning together to help our students achieve. And so that really communicated what was happening at Rainier View. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Dr. Campbell, I'm Craig Tuck, principal at Lakota Middle School. So as you see, we have a very diverse population, and it's always on my mind, how do we reach those artists? How do we reach those musicians, engineers, and all those smiling faces that enter the door and I shake hands with every single morning at school? So with that, as our PLCs got together, we really thought about how can we ensure that this work gets done. So right in August, our group got together. We decided we would take a survey and just kind of look and see where we are and where are we going with this, and see how this collaborative time is going to work best for Lakota. And that's just a snapshot of some of the questions that some of our teachers really took a look at and dove into before we started into this work. And then the 4 corollary questions from the Dufour model were mentioned earlier, and that's really the foundation for what we do in our school, and really get the education process started. Thinking about, yes, what is it that we want those students to learn? Looking at that learning target for that daily learning, which is so important and crucial in order to move on to those next steps. So at the very beginning, they took the time to develop a curriculum map, which really took a look at all the Common Core standards and allowed those teachers to really focus in on what is important throughout the year and be able to build those blocks so that student learning is built similar to math, so that by the end of the year they're ready to move on to that next grade level. And with that, we were able to then get our staff together and gain that new knowledge that's so important as we move to that second question of, how will we know when they've learned it? Staff gets together, they have that opportunity to think about what it looks like and sounds like, and then in turn that over to students and say, hey student, this is what it looks like, this is what it sounds like, grapple with that, learn that, master that. So that was really important to us, and having that time to get together as that staff to be able to discuss those problems of practice and really look to learn best practices in terms of teaching our students. With that, we look at my 8th grade math team, and they're really starting to move into that, to question 3 and 4 about how to respond if they don't know it, and how they would respond if the student already has mastered that. And they're taking the time now to collaborate. They teach the exact same thing, kind of in a lockstep, reaching all 8th grade math students. And then they can go, okay, hey, this group, they've learned this concept. What are we going to do to extend that for them, to really push them and keep that rigor going? And then having that opportunity to go, oh, this group of students didn't get that work. How am I going to reteach that in a different way to ensure that the learning happens? Another thing as they move into middle school is being able to think about how to use a skill over different content areas. And it's an important time for teachers to get together. I've got my ELA teacher and algebra teacher there talking about what skills can those kids learn that they can use in both of those classes, and really thinking about how they can lean on each other to ensure that that learning is being heard throughout the day, and not just in English class or not just in math class. And then one of the great pictures is that individualized learning that a lot of my building is really starting to move to, and it's really nice to see. As you can see, we've got the teacher doing the blended learning, where she's up front reteaching 3 or 4 students that might not have that concept, and making sure that they don't get behind. And you've got that middle group there of peers that are working together to solve problems, push each other, extend a little bit of learning. And then you've got that outside ring there, that those are kids that have mastered that particular skill at that moment, and they're researching, hey, how do I dig a little bit deeper into that skill? How do I get that new knowledge right there? And that's all working within one classroom, because as you can see, classrooms don't look the same way as they did back when we were in school, sitting in rows and kids being quiet and a teacher teaching. Kids need to be moving, and that's really what we've been trying to push so that we reach every single learner where they are and meet their needs. Thank you.
Good evening. I am the proud principal of Decatur High School, and these days are so critical for the work that we're doing. And the work of our high school, aligning with the ends of the district, is that 100% of our kids are going to graduate prepared for success beyond high school. And it's easy to say. And it's easy to be dismissive of that, say, well, 100% sure you don't really mean that. You just say that to be politically correct. But that's our work. And that goal is held up by 3 critical legs. The leg of knowing all of our Gators, promoting positive behavior every day, and improving our learning every day. Our work in professional learning communities is essential to that work of knowing our Gators and to improving our learning. Obviously, the early dismissal days aren't the only time that our teachers collaborate in professional learning communities. And I think that's critical to understand. But this time allows us to turbocharge that work. It allows us to do things that we can't do at other times. And so I want to talk about a few of those things. First thing, it is a unique time, as was mentioned earlier, that our entire staff can meet together. At a high school where there is coaching and clubs and people coming and going, and this frenetic city, we almost have no opportunity for the entire staff, not just teaching staff, paraeducators, professional technical, custodians. We all got together on that day so that we can collaborate for a short time around some of those critical issues and practices that we can all share. Because the reality is it can't be done by the teachers alone. They're all our kids. And every single one of my staff members plays a critical role in helping us reach that 100% goal. And so we come together, we have an opportunity to meet as an entire team. We also have an opportunity to do differentiated professional development. So we got together, we had a group of teachers say, we really want to learn more about how we can develop really good learning targets, what the student needs to know and learn as a result of today's lesson, and more importantly, how they will know and I will know whether or not they met that. And so that really comes down to the language of learning targets and success criteria. And so we did some very targeted professional development with groups of teachers who had a basic understanding and said, we want to go further. And what a great opportunity for teachers to say, we want to learn more, and to have this time to be able to honor them as learners and honor them in their professional goals. It also gave time for teachers to work as broader departments or sub-departments. So this is an extension of our professional learning community work that happens throughout the year. But this is a math team right here working on a common assessment and analyzing student data, and that's the key, right? It's not just enough to say, here's how we're going to assess it. We got to come back and say, who got it? Who didn't? What are the trends? And so those 3 teachers work together and say, you know what? My kids really did well on this concept. And the other teacher says, mine really did well on this. And so they look to each other and say, how did you do that? What did you do differently? And so it truly does become everybody lifting where they stand to be able to move our entire school towards that goal. We also have a thing at our school called the PLC Challenge, where PLC teams are taking upon themselves to share the work that they're doing. And they're doing this in part at our early release days, at sort of that whole group, at that whole staff meeting, where they come together and say, this is what we're doing. This is the work that we are doing. You see some of those questions there. Because I think it's critical that we continue to break down the barriers that sometimes exist in education, where we work in separate silos and we work independently as kings and queens of our own castles. And I work with a great staff who really love to work together. And this gives them an opportunity to showcase that great work, and it's become really inspiring. We had 3 teams sign up, say, I want to share next, I want to share next. What a great problem to have more people who want to share than time to share it in. And so I think that just really showcases how much they value the work and value the time that we have in early release. Thank you. Are there any questions for us?
Directors, any questions?
And I'll have my team come and join me so we can.
I don't have a question, but I must say I'm incredibly impressed. You know, this is the kind of work that our community can understand too. And to me, that's the strength of it. It's not only that we can teach and learn each other, but that we can explain it. And I think so often that's the difficulty, is how do you educate the community? And a lot of our terms are hard for people to understand, but the way you all have laid it out. And I don't know how you do it with that many new students. I just don't know. That is amazing.
Amazing staff.
But all of you are amazing, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, for me, what was interesting is the idea that you're able to compound the learning opportunities across teachers by knowing what the student is needing. And so I always understood the benefits of collaborating and trying to get the best practices, but I never thought of it in terms of all the teachers understanding the needs of a student and working together to help that student out in the areas of need. So that's really great to hear.
Thank you.
I appreciate that as well, because as we work better and smarter and harder at getting our kids ready, what teachers have taught is not going to be what they are going to teach, because kids are going to come more ready. So we've got to be able to talk to teachers that come before us and those teachers that teach after us to make sure that we're teaching in the right space, because, you know, my hope is as we do this better and better, we're going to have kids that are better prepared, which means we're going to be able to excel and move kids further along the way they're supposed to be. So, and this is the opportunity to do that both among teams, but also vertically across teams as well.
Thank you.
Director.
I'm very excited to hear just how much similarity and yet how much difference there is. You know, if we're going to model what we're talking about, where every student is an individual with individual needs, then we need to model it with our teachers. And I really sensed that modeling taking place. And it's going to make a difference in how our students learn. I really enjoyed listening to the specificity, and I know everyone that's been watching this has a much better idea of the benefits of this release time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know we struggled. We started out as early starts, right? Or, you know, late starts. And then we moved to early releases because Dr. Campbell listened to the community. But I'm just glad we found the space to do this. And as we take what we've learned this year and move it forward next year, the space that allows the teachers to come together, not in four individual days, but spread across in an hour-and-a-half segment, 90-minute periods, to have the least amount of impact with families, and those that are impacted we're supporting in each of your buildings. I just appreciate us doing this and taking care of our staff so we can move forward to help all of our students. So thank you this evening for being here.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add, this is going to be even more. First of all, I want to say I appreciate the artifacts, because what the artifacts tell us is what you're actually doing in your schools. So we can see the images of what it looks like. It really elevates what the work looks like. So it's not only powerful for us to sort of explain it, but for us to actually see it real time. I really appreciate you taking the time to include those artifacts. But as we go forward with the strategic plan, we're going to have goals. We're going to need time for our staffs to learn and be focused on those goals. So imagine how much more targeted, focused, and high leverage that time can be when we're using it to accomplish the goals in our strategic plan. And that, I think, will be another important piece as well. So I applaud you. We know that the principals are critical. We know that teachers are first and foremost the ones on the front line, but to hear you creating a space where our staff are able to really come together and think in a clear and focused way on behalf of our children, only great things can come from that. So thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we're adjourned.